They thought she was just another student. Quiet. Ordinary. Powerless. But the truth? She was none of those things. When officers stormed her school that morning, all it took was one word, one moment, for everything to spiral. A slap heard across the hallway. A girl on the ground. And the entire world about to find out who she really was. Because the woman they dragged, humiliated, and called trash wasn't just a student. She was Special Agent Amara Johnson, FBI, undercover. And before the sun set, the same cops who mocked her would be standing in her courtroom, in handcuffs. This is not just a story about power. It's about truth. It's about what happens when the system mistakes silence for weakness. And a woman turns pain into purpose. This is Raw Tales Stories. Where truth doesn't whisper, it roars back. If you believe in justice, hit subscribe and listen closely. Because this story, you won't forget it. The morning sun spilled through the windows of Jefferson High School, glinting off the rows of lockers as students bustled in and out of classrooms. The sound of sneakers squeaking on linoleum floors mixed with laughter, gossip, and the hum of teenage life. In a corner of the library sat Amara Johnson, a young black woman in her early 20s, dressed simply in jeans, a white hoodie, and sneakers. Her hair was pulled back neatly, her face calm and focused. To anyone watching, she looked like an ordinary college student doing research. But what no one knew, not even the school staff, was that Amara was not here to study. She was an undercover FBI agent, assigned to quietly investigate reports that someone within the school's administration was moving drugs through student lockers. Her mission was simple: blend in, observe, and report. For 2 weeks, she had done just that, quietly gathering information, connecting dots, and waiting for the right time to act. But on this day, something went wrong. A teacher walking past noticed Amara's unfamiliar face and frowned. She had seen this girl around but couldn't quite place her. Curiosity twisted into suspicion. She went straight to the school's security office. "There's a young woman in the library I don't recognize. She's been on that computer all morning, looking at something suspicious." The security officer didn't bother checking records or asking questions. He picked up the phone and called the local police. "Yeah, we've got a trespasser. Might be one of those activists trying to stir up trouble again." Within 15 minutes, 2 squad cars pulled up outside the school. Students peered through classroom windows, whispering as 2 uniformed officers stepped out. Officer Daniels, tall and muscular, with a perpetual scowl, and Officer Reed, younger, trying to match his partner's aggression. They entered the library with heavy steps, their boots echoing. Amara lifted her eyes briefly but said nothing. She could feel their presence before she saw them. "You!" Daniels barked. "Show me your ID." Amara blinked, surprised by the tone. She slowly closed her laptop. "Good morning, officer. May I ask what this is about?" "Don't play smart," Daniels snapped. "I said ID? You don't belong here." "Actually, Before she could finish, he snatched the laptop from the table and slammed it shut. "What's this? Hacking into school records?" A few students gasped. Phones were already out, recording. Amara exhaled slowly, fighting to stay composed. "Sir, I think there's a misunderstanding. I'm working on an investigation." "Investigation?" Daniels scoffed. "What kind of investigation? You think you're some kind of cop?" Reed chuckled beside him. "Looks like a wannabe to me." Laughter rippled from a few watching students. Amara stood up slowly. "Officers, I really need you to stay calm and call your superior. I promise, this will make sense." "Don't tell me how to do my job!" Daniels shouted. He stepped forward and shoved her shoulder, sending her stumbling back into a table. The library went dead silent. And then it happened. The slap. Loud. Sharp. Echoing through the room. Amara's head jerked to the side, her cheek burning. Someone screamed. Someone else yelled. "Yo! Why'd you hit her?" Daniels snarled. "Hands behind your back." Now! Reed fumbled with handcuffs as Amara held her composure, trembling slightly but refusing to cry. You're making a mistake, she said softly. Yeah, we'll see about that, Daniels muttered, yanking her arms behind her. Students filmed every second as she was dragged out of the library, laptop dangling from Daniels' other hand. Outside, she was forced toward the patrol car. Reporters from a local channel covering another story nearby turned their cameras. They caught it, the image of a black woman in handcuffs, surrounded by 2 white officers. Is she a student? One bystander asked. No idea, man, but it looks bad. Amara didn't resist. She didn't argue. She only whispered one sentence under her breath. You'll regret this. The ride to the station was long and tense. Reed sat in the front seat scrolling through his phone, while Daniel smirked in the rearview mirror. You kids think you can do whatever you want these days, Daniel said. Always crying discrimination. Well, this time, you messed with the wrong one. Amara looked up at him through the mirror. Maybe so, she said quietly. Or maybe you did. Daniels rolled his eyes. Save it. When they arrived at the precinct, she was led through the front doors, past other officers who smirked or looked away. She was booked without question, photographed, and placed in an interrogation room. Hours passed. No one came. No one checked her bag. No one ran her name. She sat there, staring at the gray walls, her wrists sore from the cuffs. She replayed the moment in her mind, the slap, the silence, the humiliation. And then, she smiled faintly. Because she knew something they didn't. Her supervisor had been tracking her since the arrest. Every camera in the building, every police body cam, was being watched. She wasn't stuck. She was waiting. And the ones who thought they had power were about to learn what real power looked like. The fluorescent lights in the interrogation room flickered softly. Amara sat still, her wrists red from the handcuffs that bit into her skin. She wasn't afraid, not anymore. She was waiting. Watching. Listening. Outside, in the hallway of the Eastbrook police station, Officer Daniels leaned against the wall, bragging to 2 other officers about how he had handled a trespasser. You should have seen her face when I cuffed her, he said with a smirk. Told her not to play tough. These college types think they can outsmart everyone. Reed laughed uneasily. Man, I don't know. The way she talked, it was weird. Like she knew something. Daniels scoffed. Yeah? What she knows is how it feels to disrespect the badge. We showed her. He didn't notice that Captain Morales, their commanding officer, had walked into the room behind him, arms folded tightly. You hit her? Morales asked sharply. Daniels stiffened. She resisted. On school grounds? Morales' voice was calm but cold. You had no confirmation she was trespassing? She didn't show ID, Daniels said quickly. So you hit her? Morales snapped. Daniels hesitated. Sir, she was. Enough. The room fell silent. Morales rubbed his temple. Get her statement, process her, and write the report. And Daniels, I want your bodycam footage on my desk within the hour. Daniels' jaw tightened, but he nodded and stormed off toward the interrogation room. Clapperboard inside the interrogation room. Amara looked up as Daniels entered, followed by Reed holding a clipboard. Well, Miss Johnson, Daniels said mockingly. You've been quite the mystery today. Mind telling us what you were really doing at Jefferson High? Amara folded her hands calmly. I told you. I was there for an investigation. Oh yeah? Daniels sneered. Who sent you, the Tooth Fairy? Reed chuckled, trying to hide his discomfort. Look, Amara said evenly. I understand how this looks, but if you make one call to your superior, this will clear up. No, see, Daniels interrupted, leaning forward. You don't get to tell me what to do. You're in my house now. And you're gonna sit there until I say otherwise. He slammed his hand on the table, trying to intimidate her. Amara didn't flinch. She simply stared at him, silent, composed, unbothered. That silence unnerved him. What's that look? Daniels barked. You think you're better than me? No, Amara said softly. But I think you're about to find out who I am. Reed frowned. What's that supposed to mean? Amara tilted her head. It means I gave your department a chance to handle this quietly. The two men exchanged a confused glance. And then, a buzz at the intercom. Captain Morales to Interrogation Room 3. Now. Daniels rolled his eyes. What now? As the door opened, Captain Morales stepped in, but this time, he wasn't alone. Behind him were two men in black suits, their demeanor calm, their expressions unreadable. One of them flashed a badge. Agent Walker. FBI. The air went dead still. We'll take it from here, Walker said. Daniels blinked. Wait, FBI? For her? Yes, Walker said curtly. And if I were you, officer, I'd uncuff her. Immediately. Reed hesitated. Sir, we didn't know. That's the problem. Walker cut him off. You didn't check. Daniels laughed nervously. She said she was on an investigation, but we thought she was lying. Amara slowly stood, rubbing her wrists as Reed hurried to remove the cuffs. She met Daniels' eyes. Calm. Cold. Controlled. Next time you put your hands on someone, she said quietly, make sure you know who they are. Next time you put your hands on someone, she said quietly, make sure you know who they are. Daniel's face flushed red. He opened his mouth, but no words came. Minutes later, the entire station was in chaos. Officers whispered, screens flickered, and no one knew what to say. Captain Morales sat at his desk, his face pale as Agent Walker placed a folder in front of him. Inside were documents, all stamped with the FBI seal, detailing Amara's undercover assignment. Her real name, Special Agent Amara Johnson. Her mission, to investigate allegations of narcotics and corruption within the Eastbrook Police Department itself. You mean, she was investigating us? Morales asked, stunned. Walker nodded. Some of you, yes. Daniels stood near the door, frozen. Sweat gathered on his neck. Sir, I didn't know. No, you didn't, Walker interrupted. And you made that clear when you assaulted a federal agent on camera. Reed swallowed hard. This is bad. Walker looked at him. Bad is an understatement. The footage is already being reviewed by the Bureau and the Department of Justice. Daniels turned toward Amara, desperation replacing arrogance. Look, I'm sorry, okay? It was a misunderstanding. Amara looked at him with quiet authority. You didn't misunderstand me, Officer Daniels. You dismissed me. Words spread quickly. Reporters were already outside the station. Students who had recorded the library incident were posting videos online. Within hours, #Justice for Amara began trending on social media. But Amara didn't care about the noise outside. She was focused on her job. Agent Johnson, Walker said, you don't have to stay here. We can take it from this point forward. Amara shook her head. No. I'm finishing what I started. These men need to hear the truth, not from a report. From me. She turned to Daniels and Reed, who stood in silence. You thought I was just another face you could control, she said quietly. But the truth is, the system you represent, the one that thinks it can humiliate without consequence, is exactly why I'm here. Daniels looked down, unable to meet her eyes. Reed's voice was barely a whisper. We really didn't know. Amara's tone softened. That's the point. You never know who someone really is. You only see what you've already decided to see. As she walked out of the office, camera flashes burst through the station windows. The reporters shouted questions. Agent Johnson, were you assaulted by the police? Do you plan to press charges? Is this connected to the Eastbrook corruption probe? Amara didn't answer. She simply put on her sunglasses, straightened her jacket, and stepped into the waiting black SUV. The door closed behind her. Silence. Inside the car, Agent Walker turned to her. You handled that well. Amara stared out the window as the station disappeared behind them. No, she said softly. Justice is what will handle it. The SUV drove off, and behind them, the station that once mocked her now trembled in the shadow of its own mistake. Rain fell in steady sheets over the Eastbrook Police Department the next morning. The sky was gray, heavy with the kind of tension that mirrored the mood inside. Reporters still lingered outside the gates, their cameras waiting for another headline. Inside, the once proud station felt hollow. The laughter that usually filled the halls had been replaced with whispers and eyes that refused to meet each other. Every officer knew something big was coming, and it had everything to do with the young woman they'd handcuffed like a criminal just 24 hours earlier. Amara stood at the front of the briefing room beside Agent Walker and Director Hayes, a seasoned FBI veteran with a voice that could silence a crowd. In front of them sat Captain Morales, Officers Daniels, Reed, and a handful of senior police staff. Director Hayes cleared his throat. "We appreciate your cooperation, Captain. However, after reviewing preliminary evidence and bodycam footage, it's clear this department has more than one problem." Morales stiffened. "Sir, if this is about what happened yesterday, I assure you." "Yesterday," Hayes cut in, "was just the beginning." He turned to Amara. "Agent Johnson, proceed." Amara opened a folder and began placing photographs on the table, one by one. Images of evidence logs, cash transactions, and missing case files. "For months," she said, "the FBI has been tracking a money trail leading directly from seized narcotics to private accounts linked to officers in this department. We believe someone inside has been manipulating the evidence system, removing drugs, selling them, and altering records to cover it up." Reed's eyes widened. "You mean someone here?" Amara nodded. "Not just someone. Multiple people. Including names high up in your own chain of command." The room went silent. Daniels looked uncomfortable, shifting in his seat. His earlier arrogance had completely evaporated. "Wait," Morales said carefully. "You're accusing my department of running a drug operation?" Amara met his gaze. "I'm not accusing. I'm presenting facts." She placed another document on the table, a transfer receipt showing a deposit of $75,000 into an offshore account under the alias D. Warner. Reed looked between the papers and Daniels. "Wait, your middle name's Warner, right?" Daniels froze. Hayes' voice was low and deadly calm. "Officer Daniels, do you have any explanation for this transaction?" "That's not me," Daniels stammered. "I don't even know what this is." Amara slid another photo across the table, an image from a hidden camera showing Daniels meeting with a known drug courier in a parking lot behind a convenience store. Daniels' face strained of color. "That's not what it looks like. I didn't join the Bureau to quit. I joined because I got tired of watching the wrong people get protected." For the first time, Morales saw not just an agent, but a woman who carried the weight of justice on her back. Later that evening, in a small interview room, Daniels sat alone. His hands shook as he stared at the table. Across from him sat Amara, not as a victim, but as the lead investigator. "You know why you're here," she said calmly. "Look, I didn't mean for it to go that far," Daniels whispered. "It started small, just covering for someone. Then the money came. It felt easy. But I didn't know they'd send the FBI after us." "You didn't know because you thought no one would ever care enough to look," Amara said. "I messed up," Daniels muttered. "I was stupid. But you gotta understand, I didn't hit you because I knew. I just thought. You thought I was nobody," Amara said, her voice steady but edged with pain. "You thought I was just another black woman you could silence." Daniels lowered his head. He didn't argue. "Do yourself a favor," Amara said quietly. "Tell the truth. Because this doesn't end with you. And you know it." He hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Okay. I'll talk." By the next morning, arrests were underway. Officers who had worn the same badge as Amara's abuser were being led out of the station in handcuffs. Evidence rooms were sealed. Bank accounts were frozen. The scandal broke across every major network. Headlines screamed. Eastbrook Police Department under federal investigation. Undercover FBI agent assaulted during corruption probe. The video of Amara's arrest, the slap, the handcuffs, her calm defiance, had gone viral. Millions watched. Thousands demanded reform. But while the world talked about justice, Amara stayed silent. She wasn't looking for fame, she was looking for change. Alone in her apartment, Amara sat by the window, watching the rain slide down the glass. The city lights glowed faintly in the distance. Agent Walker knocked lightly on the door before stepping in. "We got him." Daniels gave up names, 2 lieutenants, 1 detective, and even a deputy chief. Amara nodded, expression unreadable. "It's a start." Walker handed her a file. "Director Hayes wants you in D.C. next week. They're considering you for a lead role in the Integrity Task Force." Amara smiled faintly. "Tell him I'll think about it." Walker chuckled. "You've got the whole country talking about you, Amara. You could walk away now and no one would blame you." She turned to face him. "Walk away? After what happened in that school? After what happens every day to people without badges or titles? No. I'm staying." Walker nodded quietly. "You're something else, Johnson." Amara looked out the window again. "No," she said softly. "I'm just doing my job. The difference is, I don't hide behind a uniform when I do it." The news had broken. The city of Eastbrook was in chaos. What once looked like a respected police department was now a scandal on every channel. The headlines screamed betrayal. "Corruption in blue, FBI agent exposes dirty cops." "Hero or target? The woman who brought down Eastbrook PD." But while the public cheered, Amara Johnson knew the celebration was temporary. In her world, every light cast a shadow, and the darker the truth, the more dangerous the silence that followed. Amara walked through the quiet parking lot of her apartment complex late one night. The hum of the city faded behind her. Her instincts, sharp from years of undercover work, caught something off. A black SUV sat at the far end of the lot, engine running but lights off. She slowed her pace. Reached for the key. Then, click. The sound of a car door opening. A man stepped out. He wore a suit, too clean for a stranger at midnight. His face stayed in shadow, but his tone was calm, deliberate. "Agent Johnson. We need to talk." Her hand hovered near her concealed weapon. "And who exactly is we?" "Let's just say, not everyone in the Bureau is happy about how public your investigation became." Amara's eyes narrowed. "If you've got something to say, say it. You're making enemies. Big ones. You've embarrassed a lot of people who've been doing this a lot longer than you. They want this story buried. That means you, buried with it." She didn't flinch. "Then they'll have to dig deep." The man smirked slightly. "You think this is about courage? It's politics, Agent. And politics doesn't play fair." He turned and got back into the SUV. Before the door closed, he said, "Watch your back, Amara. They're already watching it for you." The car drove off, fading into the night. Amara stood still, her heart pounding. She knew it wasn't a threat, it was a warning. The next morning, Amara was summoned to FBI headquarters in Washington, D.C. Director Hayes sat at the head of a long glass table, the air thick with tension. Across from him were senior officials, people Amara had never met but had heard whispered about. "Agent Johnson," one of them began, "we appreciate your efforts, but your recent exposure has caused significant unrest in law enforcement circles. We're recommending you step down from active duty temporarily." Amara blinked. "Step down? You mean, after everything, you want me to disappear?" Another official leaned forward. "Your face is everywhere. The public sees you as a hero. That makes it harder for us to operate quietly." Amara's voice was calm but cutting. "Quietly? You mean like the way corruption operated for years, quietly?" Silence. Director Hayes gave her a warning glance, but she didn't stop. "I went undercover because no one else would. I got slapped, humiliated, and almost fired because this system refused to look at its own reflection. Now that I've held up a mirror, you're telling me to put it down? The first man sighed. Agent Johnson, this isn't personal. Amara leaned forward. It's always personal when justice costs comfort. The room fell silent again. Then Hayes spoke. She's right. But the fact remains, Amara, they're coming for you. That night, Amara was driving home when she noticed something strange. A black sedan had been behind her for over 10 blocks. Every turn she took, it followed. Her pulse quickened. She took a sudden left into a narrow street, a dead end. The car behind her slowed, then stopped. 2 men stepped out, faces hidden under dark caps. Amara stepped out too, calm, unshaken. You've got 5 seconds to tell me who sent you, she said. One of the men chuckled. You really think this is about talking? They lunged forward, but Amara moved faster. Years of FBI field training kicked in. She disarmed the first man with a swift twist of his wrist and sent him crashing into the side of the car. The second tried to grab her, but she slammed her elbow into his jaw, sending him staggering. She pinned him against the hood. Who sent you? She demanded. You don't get it, the man gasped. It's bigger than Eastbrook. You messed with the wrong people. Names? Ask your own agency. He coughed. They're the ones cleaning house, and you're next. Before she could press further, the sound of sirens filled the air. The men panicked, jumped into their car, and sped away. Amara stood there, chest heaving, headlights flashing red and blue behind her. When the police arrived, she expected help. Instead, one of the officers sneered. Agent Johnson? Funny, didn't think the FBI needed backup for a street fight. Something in his tone felt off, familiar. The same tone she'd heard before, in that school hallway, before the slap. Back in her apartment, Amara couldn't shake the words. Ask your own agency. She opened her laptop and started digging through encrypted reports, communications, and transfer logs. Her fingers flew over the keys, searching, cross-referencing. Then she found it. An internal memo labeled Operation Mirafall. It was a covert cleanup order, targeting agents with unauthorized exposure. And at the top of the list was her name. She froze. Her breath caught in her chest. They weren't protecting her. They were eliminating her. Just then, her phone buzzed. A blocked number. She hesitated, then answered. You shouldn't have looked that up, a voice said. Male. Cold. Now you've left us no choice. The line went dead. She stood still for a long time, staring at the wall, not with fear, but with quiet fury. So that's how it's going to be, she whispered. Amara didn't run. She never did. Instead, she packed a small black bag, files, her badge, and a flash drive holding every piece of evidence she'd collected. She called one person, Agent Walker. Walker, I need your help. But you have to trust me completely. Always, he said. What's going on? They're coming after me. But if they want to erase the truth, I'll make sure the world sees it first. They met at an abandoned printing factory on the city's edge. Rain poured through holes in the roof. Walker looked at her, eyes full of worry. You're going to leak federal files? Amara, that's career suicide. It's not about my career anymore, she said. It's about the next woman who gets slapped for asking the wrong question. Walker took a deep breath, then nodded. Then let's do it right. In a dimly lit office, Amara and Walker connected to a secure network. They began transferring the files, evidence of the Bureau's cover-ups, corruption, and Operation Mirafall. Each document exposed more than the last. Each byte uploaded was another nail in the coffin of silence. Outside, distant sirens wailed. They were out of time. It's almost done, Walker said. 2 more minutes. That's all we need, Amara replied. The building lights flickered, power cut. They're here, Walker shouted. Amara grabbed the flash drive, pocketed it, and pulled him toward the exit. Gunfire echoed in the distance. They ran into the night, rain pouring, hearts pounding. Behind them, the upload reached 100%. By morning, the world had changed again. News channels were flooded with documents, not leaked by the FBI, but anonymously sent from an unknown source. Whistleblower files proving that Amara Johnson had been marked for termination by her own agency, for exposing the truth. The internet called her a hero. The Bureau called her a fugitive. But somewhere out there, Amara Johnson watched from the shadows, alive, unbroken, and still fighting. She looked into the camera of a hidden phone and said softly, "You can silence one voice, but not the truth." Rain pounded against the city skyline as if trying to wash away the sins no one wanted to speak of. A week had passed since Amara's files went public. The truth was out, but so was she. Every major news outlet was calling her a traitor, a hero, or both. The Bureau issued a nationwide warrant for her arrest. But she didn't run. She strategized. Deep inside an abandoned subway control room beneath the city, Amara stared at the flickering glow of multiple laptop screens. News anchors filled the air. Former FBI agent Amara Johnson remains at large. Anonymous sources claim her leaks have triggered internal investigations. The public demands answers. Agent Walker walked in, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "You realize they're hunting you like a ghost, right?" Amara smirked faintly. "Good. Ghosts have a way of haunting people." She slid a folder across the table. Inside, a list of high-ranking officials linked to Operation Mirafall. "These are the ones who signed off on it. The ones who ordered the cover-up." Walker frowned. "You want to expose them all?" "Not just expose them," she said. "Make them confess, on camera." Walker leaned back, stunned. "You're talking about walking into the lion's den." Amara met his eyes. "Then I'll walk in with fire." Clapperboard Scene 2, the setup. Amara's plan was simple, but suicidal. She'd lure the officials into a press conference under the guise of a security leak inquiry. There, she would broadcast their confessions live to the nation, using the evidence she'd gathered. With the help of a few loyal insiders, she hacked into the Bureau's media feed. The countdown began. Walker hesitated as they prepared the transmitters. "Amara, if this goes wrong, they'll erase you for real this time." She smiled faintly. "They already tried." Her tone was calm, not with arrogance, but conviction. "If one woman's silence can protect a system this broken, then one woman's voice can destroy it." Clapperboard Scene 3, the press conference. Inside the Federal Justice Hall, bright cameras flashed as the senior officials took the stage. Director Hayes stood at the podium, flanked by agents and reporters. "The Bureau has been the victim of a cyber attack." Suddenly, the screen behind him glitched. Static. Then, Amara's face appeared. Gasps rippled through the room. "Good morning, Director," she said through the live feed. "Funny seeing you again. You told me to step down quietly. I decided to speak loudly instead." Reporters turned their cameras. The room went wild. "You tried to erase me for exposing corruption. You called me a liability, a public risk. But the real risk is pretending justice can survive without truth." Hayes' voice boomed, furious. "Cut the feed." But it was too late. Screens across the nation, TV stations, online streams, even billboards, began broadcasting Amara's message. "To every officer who's been silenced. To every citizen who's been mistreated. To every young black girl who was told to keep her head down, look up. The system fears you because you see it." Clapperboard Scene 4, the confession. Behind the scenes, Walker was transmitting the files Amara had collected, audio tapes of internal meetings. One by one, the voices of the same officials in the room echoed through the speakers. "We'll handle her quietly. The leak can't trace back to us. Erase her records, she's compromised." Reporters froze. Cameras zoomed in on the shocked faces of the men who'd once held power. The public was watching everything. Hayes grabbed a microphone, shouting, "This is fabricated! She's lying!" But Amara's final words silenced him, Truth doesn't need permission to exist. Then, she looked directly into the camera. You slapped me once, thinking I was powerless. But I wasn't a student that day. I was a mirror. And today, you're the reflection. The feed cut. The hall erupted into chaos. Sirens wailed across the city again. SWAT teams flooded the subway tunnels. Walker and Amara were on the move, adrenaline pounding. They're close! Walker shouted, breathless. Good, Amara said. They'll follow the wrong signal. She handed him a small flash drive. Go to the press. Get this to the independent network. If I don't make it, promise me you'll finish this. Amara. She smiled. Go. Walker hesitated, then disappeared into the dark. Amara turned down another corridor, leading them away, a decoy, a ghost. Footsteps thundered behind her. Shouts echoed through the tunnels. Agent Johnson! Stop! She didn't. Because this wasn't about escape anymore. It was about ending the story her way. At the end of the tunnel, she found herself face to face with Director Hayes, gun drawn. You just couldn't stop, could you? He hissed. You could have had a future. I still do, she said calmly. One where you're not in it. He raised his gun. But before he could shoot, a dozen FBI agents rushed in, not for Amara, but for him. Agent Walker had done it. The files had gone live, every secret, every confession. One agent read from his radio. Director Hayes, you're under arrest for conspiracy and obstruction of justice. Hayes froze. His world collapsed in seconds. Amara just watched, silent. For once, she didn't need to say a word. Weeks later, headlines dominated the nation. FBI cleans house after massive internal scandal. Whistleblower Agent Johnson declines to return, chooses to mentor youth. From target to teacher, how one woman changed the system. Amara sat on a park bench, watching kids play nearby. Walker approached with coffee. You really think the Bureau's going to change? He asked. She smiled softly. Change isn't an order, Walker. It's a seed. You plant it, and you pray it grows. And what about you? She looked at the horizon. I'll keep planting. A new headline appeared on a giant digital billboard. Agent Amara Johnson launches Foundation for Justice, empowering young women in law enforcement. As the camera pulled back, Amara's voice echoed. They called me a criminal. But sometimes breaking the system is the only way to rebuild it. The screen fades to black. The words appear. Based on a story that could happen anywhere. This is Raw Tales Stories. Subscribe for more true inspired tales of power, pain, and redemption.